Canto 7. O sana sanctus Deus sabot, super illustrans claritate tua, felices ignis aurum malacot. Thus wheeling to the notes of his own melody, I saw that being in whom a double light is twinned, caught up in a song, he and the others moving in their dance, and like the fastest flying sparks, veiled from me by their sudden distance. I was in doubt, saying to myself, tell her, saying to myself, tell this to my lady, who slakes my thirst with her sweet drops. But the reverence that is mistress over me at the mere sound of bay or iche bowed down my head as when a man nods off. Not long did Beatrice leave me in this state before she spoke, shining with the rays of such a smile as would content a man if he were set on fire. In my infallible opinion, this idea that just revenge itself perhaps deserves just punishment has set you thinking. But I will quickly free your mind of doubt. Still, you must listen closely, for my words shall set before you things of great importance. By not enduring, for his own good, a rein upon his will, that man who is not born, damning himself, damned all his offspring. As a result, for centuries the human race lay sick in an abyss of error until the Word of God chose to descend, uniting human nature, estranged now from its Maker, with himself and his own person by a single act of his eternal love. Now direct your inner sight on what evolves from that. This nature, united with its Maker, was pure and good, even as it was when first created. But through the fault of its own doing, it was expelled from Eden, because it turned away from truth in life. If, then, the penalty exacted by the cross is measured by the nature he assumed, no other ever stung so justly. Yet it is also true that there was never done so great an outrage with regard to him who suffered, having taken on that nature. From a single act, then, came diverse effects, for the same death delighted God as well as Jews. Because of it earth quaked and heaven opened. No longer, from now on, should it seem puzzling when you hear it said that a just vengeance was afterward avenged in a just court. But now I see your mind entangled by one thought and another in a knot, from which, eager, it waits to be untied. You say, I follow closely what I hear, but why God wanted this to be the very way for our redemption is obscure to me. The reason for this decree, brother, lies buried, hidden from the eyes of all whose minds have not been ripened in the flame of love. None the less, because so many strive to hit this mark, while so few can even see it, I shall explain why that was the choice most fitting. Spurning any kind of envy, divine goodness, burning within, so sparkles that it unfolds eternal beauty. That which, unmediated, derives from it, is thus without an end, because its imprint, once stamped, can never wear away. That which, unmediated, rains down from it, is wholly free, because it is not subject to the influence of things more recent, is more like that goodness, and thus more pleases him. The holy ardor that irradiates all things shines brightest in what most resembles it. In all these gifts the human creature is advantaged, but if a single gift is lacking, he must fall from his exalted state. Sin alone is what enslaves him, making him unlike the highest good, so that he is illumined by its light but little, never returning to his privilege unless he fills the void created by his fault with penalties fit for his sinful pleasure. Your nature, when it sinned in toto, in its seed, was separated from these privileges and from its Eden. Nor could they be recovered, if you consider closely, by any other recourse except to ford one of these crossings. either that God in his own clemency had pardoned, or that man of himself had given satisfaction for his foolish pride. Now fix your eyes deep in the abyss of the everlasting will of God, and give your strict attention to my words. With his limitations, man could never offer satisfaction, for he could not descend as deep into humility by latter-day obedience, as by disobeying he had thought to rise. And this is the reason for which he was denied the power of giving satisfaction on his own. Thus it was necessary that God in his own ways restore man to the fullness of his life, by the one way that is, or by both of them. But since the deed more gratifies the doer, the more it shows the goodness of the heart from which it springs, divine goodness, which puts its imprint on the world, was pleased to proceed in both its ways to raise you up again. Nor between the last night and the first day was, or will there be, a deed performed in the first way or the second so sublime or generous. For God was more bountiful when he gave himself, enabling man to rise again, than if, in his sole clemency, he had simply pardoned. All other means fell short of justice, save that the Son of God should humble himself by becoming flesh. Now, to satisfy each of your desires, I go back to clarify one point, that you may understand it just as I do. You say, I see water, I see fire, air, and earth, and all their combinations become corrupted, lasting only briefly. And yet these things were created, so that, if what was said is true, they should be proof against corruption. The angels, brother, in this pure country where you are, may be said to have been created just as they are, and in their entire being. But those elements that have been named, and those other things made from them, take their form from a created power. Created was the matter that is in them, created the informing power in these stars that wheel about them. The soul of every beast and every plant is drawn from a complex of potentials, by the shining and the motion of the holy lights. But supreme goodness breathes life in you, unmediated, and he who so enamors your soul of himself that it desires him forever after. From this you may, in consequence, deduce your resurrection, if you but recall how then your flesh was made in the making of the two first parents.